Hi, today I want to talk to you about something that happened to me here on campus. I was walking and then I saw this clock right here. And it felt weird to me because I'm not used to seeing this kind of clocks. And immediately my mind thought about two things. How conscious are we about the clocks that we see on the streets, or in my case, on campus? And do they really help nowadays? Do they fulfill the needs that we present? And if not, how can we improve these clocks to make them useful for us? So, in this video, I will try to learn and know and analyze how the clock might not be what we need right now. First of all, we need to talk a little bit more about this clock. It's said that it was built around the same time as Aulas Cuatro, and that will bring us about the 1960s and 70s. So, this clock tells us that in the 1960s and 70s, this was the more efficient way to know time. And this brings us to what Barthes says about the chronotopes, about how the configurations of time and space are represented in the language and discourse. So, we know that this clock back in the 60s, 70s was the efficient way to know the time. And nowadays, we know that there are more efficient ways to know time than this clock. And actually it is pretty much told in a video that was made on the Jimmy Kimmel live show, where he asked a couple of young people to read this clock, this analog clock. And most of them couldn't say the time, and the ones that did, they were late on telling them. They started to get difficulties on reading clock, and they leaned to read it on their phones and have a digital clock, which is more efficient nowadays. Here is where Barthes and Eco help us to answer the question. Barthes says, by explaining the concept of the myth, that the concept of the myth is to transform a meaning into a form. The meaning in this space is to tell time in the most efficient way possible. Back in the 60s was by the use of the analog clock. Nowadays, we have that the digital clock is the most efficient way to tell time. So, by changing this analog clock by a digital one, we are still fulfilling the meaning that it's meant to be, that it's going to be telling time in the most efficient way possible. We can also add what Eco says about functionality, which is that materials, shapes, and use of work define our indexes of the functionality. So the functionality in this case is as well telling time as the most efficient way possible. And we may change the materials and shape, but the use of work will always remain the same, that is telling time in the most efficient way possible. So, with these contributions, with these concepts being put into this clock, and what can be improved to make it better, we can say that adding a digital clock would be a pretty great improvement to the clock, and also will help to these new generations to fulfill the new needs. So basically these are the changes that I would suggest that be added to the clock to make it more adequate to the recent times. And as an extra suggestion, I would like to add a weather measurement system, because nowadays the climate has been changing a lot, and we don't know exactly how the weather will be at the day. If it's gonna be hot, is it gonna be cold, we don't know. So by adding also a weather measurement system would be really useful. So yeah, that's a little extra suggestion I make. So basically that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can also check the references of all the concepts I used here in the description, and yeah, see you next time.